All right, we have the Shredded Slopes tournament. Somebody told me, I was talking to my teammate Kyle earlier today, and he said that next week we're going to have a 9-hole cup that's going to be all the par fives. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that sounds pretty interesting. But this week we have the Shredder tournament, and it's going to be at Groomberg Slopes. So let's check out these Groomberg Slopes holes. First, I can tell you that the Groomberg Slopes holes, I've played a little bit of one-on-one on them, but almost all of my playtime on these holes has been in tournaments. So I'm going to try and remember how to play them. Let's go to hole number one. Hole number one. Let's see what we got going on here. All right. There is a possibility of getting on in one, and you can do this with a lot of different ball types, but if you've got any kind of serious headwind, you may need to, depending on how you're doing the shot, if you're trying to get over to this side, you're definitely going to need to bring a power 5 ball, probably with overpower, trying to get it through this gap to bleed it up towards the green. What I found in my experience is a lot of times I don't actually get on the green. If I make the shot, I'm like in this area right here, and I still have a pitch. But this area, while if you're looking at this 2D picture, looks like it's pretty flat to there. Here's where you're at, and here's the green. And so it's quite a bit uphill. And I do remember in the past doing a minus 10%. It is definitely, and even though you're that close, you want to, if you're down in here shooting up, it's the same thing. You're going to end up doing a minus number. It's going to be one of those things we'll have to work on as the week goes on, depending on which way the wind's blowing. But it is possible to get up there and get on in one here. Even if you end up, you're going to see most people trying to go for it to get up in this area. But you're going to see a lot of people just hitting it right here into this area, and you have a really nice wedge. Depending on what ball you bring out, short iron. If you're just laying it up out here, you can bounce over from this side and just bring it straight through the gap and try and lay it up right here. Key here is distance to make sure that you don't bleed off into that rough. You really want to give yourself a good shot for it. But you can try and get up here and get closer, get up on the green. My experience with this green is that the green is kind of, it does have a flat area on it, but it's kind of humped. So if you go past the flagpole with any distance, you're going to end up on the backside. I've been back here in the back several times, unfortunately, but you can get on this green in one. So it really is going to depend on the wind, and we'll have to work on any adjustment based off where you're ending up, working on that adjustment all week. So if you're on this side or if you're on this side, how you're going to play that to get up there. But we do have a serious opportunity on this hole to get an eagle. And this is one of those holes that has plagued me the few times that we've played these courses, where you got to be on in the weekend round on this. And if it's anything like last week, I was kicking ass in the qualifying and the opening rounds, and then you get to the weekend round and it's flat. But this is one of those holes that we really need to pick up in the weekend round. It gives us a great opportunity to start each side off with an eagle. And that can really, really help us out. All right, this par 5. Let's talk about it. You actually have several ways that you can go. You can lay it up here at the top. And there is huge elevation stuff here. So like if you're here, we'll call this 0.1, we'll call this 0.2. And this has a scale. So if you're at 0.1, here's 0.1, and then here's the cup. So you're like way uphill from it. If you're way down here on the end, once again, you're way uphill from it. But if your traditional shot is right here, this slope is like this. So if you hit out here to the end, you're going to be way uphill from the cup, and your wind adjustment or elevation adjustment is going to be different than if you're anywhere back. So it's super important if you're hitting to this side right here, that if you're hitting to this area, that you try and land in that area every time. Because if you're here one time, and then you're here one time, and then you're here one time, all three of those are going to be different, because this is higher, this is in the middle, this is lower. So this side here, if you're hitting up out in this top plateau, it's pretty much going to be the same. There will be a little bit of difference, but over here on this side, it's going to get you closer. I think over here, I can't remember which club we're using over here. I think we were using a wood from this side, but on this side you can get up into your long iron range. And myself, I've preferred this side because I always like to get into a shorter club. But there is another way to play this hole too, and it's pretty aggressive because it's at the end of your run. But what you can do is try and bridge the gap from here over to this so that you're on this side. And one of the benefits of being on this side is you're not quite flat with the cup, but you're pretty close. And you're going to have a very nice run-up shot if you're over on this side. If you bring out a big ball, if you've got, especially if you've got upper developed clubs where you've got an extra mile 9 or you've got an APOC 6, it may be a little bit easier to get over here, but it really depends on the wind. If we have tailwind, it may be easier to get over here regardless of your clubs. If we have headwind, this shot to get over to the other side might be out of the work. So it may be one of those things during the week where if we have any kind of positive moving wind, maybe you're going for this shot, but then we get in the round where we have this and you either switch to the shot over here or the shot over here. But having those in your bag, but this shot over here definitely will get you down onto the same level as the cup, and I think the shot going in will be quite a bit easier. The problem with this type of shot for me is we need to get through this rough at the very end of our run, and we have very little control of what happens at the end of our run. The other thing is if you come into the shot here, you're on this side and you hit a one ring grate to the left. By the time you get out here to the sand, you're going to be way into the sand. So you're really going to need to hit this shot perfect. And you're going to need to make a great wind adjustment with your driver in order to get the ball in the trajectory. And this is downhill, so if you can catch this with any speed, especially if you can get your last bounce here and catch it with any speed, there's a good chance that it's going to roll out on the other side and you're going to have a great shot. So we do have some options here. It's all going to depend on the ball inventory that you have and what kind of clubs you have in your bag. And everybody's got different clubs and everybody's got a different ball inventory. So it's all about what you have in your bag for your game. All right, the par threes. First, my observation on these par threes. The very first time I ever played this hole, I got a hole-in-one on it. Actually, two of the par threes in this course, the very first time I ever played them, I got a hole-in-one. And one of the things I noticed on this hole was where my red line was at, I was taking the shot with a sniper. I was at minimum club. And so at minimum club, it should be about 1.3, depending 1.2, 1.3 per ring. I typically play my sniper at 1.3 per ring at minimum. And what I did was I played a max shot. So I played it at 1 per ring and it went right into the cup. So this is basically a 30% elevation. So you can do it, I suppose you could do it either way. You could do a 1.3, you could do a minimum club with a 30% elevation, or you can just do a 1 for 1, however you want to play it. I have actually switched how I play this hole, and I don't play out here in the open anymore. I actually do the rough bump off the tip. And this rough bump off the tip, if you're on this side, and you're out in this area right here, if the wind's blowing in any of these directions, you're making your pull out in here and you're not going to get any distortion of the rings. But see this shadow that's right here in the sand. If the wind's blowing from anywhere in this direction where you have to engage the sand, it's going to hugely distort the rings and it could affect your shot setup. And this is one of those things where we make a pull and we end up catching a perfect and then we end up in the sand because we overpulled it because the rings were so distorted. So on the shot here for the rough bump, I've actually changed my starting position. If the wind is blowing in this direction where I have to engage the sand, then what I do is I start off on this side. If the wind is blowing in any other direction, I start off up here in the front so that I can avoid that sand as much as possible. The shot setup is a little bit different when you're over. And I think I might have been using a Kingmaker in order to get into this area and having side spin. If you're on this side, it doesn't take as much side spin, but if you move over in order to give yourself more leeway in that rough area and to try and kind of center yourself, because the most important thing about a rough bump is hitting the rough. So if you're in the center here and you didn't hit it perfect, you get a grate to the left or the right, you're still in the rough. You're going to be off the cup, but you're still going to bleed forward and end up on the green, and it won't be a problem. If you're over here, and you hit it great to the left or the right, there's the possibility that you're either going to end up in the sand or miss the fairway altogether, and that is no bueno. So when you play this hole, especially if you haven't played it a lot, when you get up into this area, if you're trying this rough bump, move it over, move it up to the top, and you'll see what I'm talking about, that it's basically the same shot, but if we're here, we have to put on more side spin. There is a really good funnel from here, though, that goes right to the cup. And you do, if you're not comfortable with rough bumps, there is a great shot coming in here, but realize that you're going to be at minimum club, and you may be doing a max number, and that's a 30% built-in wind adjustment. So it's one of those things you're going to have to work it with your clubs and where your starting position, and depending on what ball you bring out. I'm pretty sure on this hole I was bringing out a bigger ball in order to get up into this range. I'm pretty sure. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure. All right. Now, let's talk about this hole. The safest way to play this hole, and in one-on-one, it doesn't really matter. If you end up in anywhere out here in the rough, you can recover from here. But you do have a great shot just taking your quarterback, and it doesn't take anything more than a quarterback, and it can be any level quarterback, and just hitting it out into this area right here, and you have a sniper to the cup. Now, if you bring out a bigger ball, this shot with the sniper, I'm not sure if you can work it into long range. I think it's still outside of your long range. I think it's in the wood range, but you have a great shot from over here. And it's no fuss, no muss. There's no, I would rather take the shot out here than take the shot from the rough. Not that I'm afraid of the shot from the rough. I don't have any problem with shots in the rough. The needle's moving a little faster, maybe a little bit harder to catch a perfect, but you can still shut that shot up to go in. But you're always better off being in the fairway. And so if you're having problems, or if you got lower developed clubs, or you don't have a big ball inventory and you don't want to go through the steps to get over here, you can just lay it up. I think most people are going to play this where they're going to try and come in and they're going to end up in this area right here. It's very easy because of the terrain. The way that this goes over here is from this point, it goes up the hill and then it goes down. And so if you're hitting here, it's going to be one of those things where it wants to take a straight up bounce. And it's the same thing over here, because this fairway right here where you're setting your shot up goes flat and then it curls. So if you're trying to push it forward to get more raw distance between bounce number one and bounce number two, and you catch this curve, your ball is going to take a flat trajectory. It's going to take a flat bounce, and your ball guide's going to end up, it's going to make it short. So what you'll have to do when you set the shot up is make sure that you pull your drive back to get up here on the flat, and that makes your second bounce the farthest that it'll go. And your ball guide's going to be going off in this direction, so we're going to have to put some curl on it. Now, this is one of those shots, if we look at the tee box, we're here, and this is the area that we're going, and we're trying to get down into this area. So we're here, and we're coming off in this direction, and then we've got to bring it around to get to here. And I see a lot of people, they'll set it up in this area, and then they'll put curl on it. But what they should be paying attention to is their second bounce. So your first bounce is on this fairway and your second bounce is on this fairway, and when you put curl on it to try and bring it over to this spot, your second bounce is going to end up in the rough. Now you can get lucky and it'll hit the rough and then bleed out and you need to just be up here at the top. But if you put even just a little teeny bit too much curl on it, you'll end up stuck in the rough up here. And this is one of those shots that when I'm doing curl on these, instead of pinching it down here and trying to get one bounce and then two bounce and then applying curl, you have very little room in this area. If your bounce is going from, if your second bounce is here, there's very little room and you're in the rough. So normally on shots like this where I'm doing curl, I'm really focused on where that second bounce is going. Instead of pinching myself down here, I will pull the ball to the left and open it up so that my second bounce with side spin, and when I put on curl, I can put on a lot more curl to try and get the ball so that it's flowing directly down this fairway. So when you're out there taking the shot, if you're finding yourself having problems with your curl, move the ball to the left a little bit. Open this shot up on the other side so that when you put that curl, you're more likely to go right down through the middle. Now, the last time we played this hole, I had figured out a shot from this side right here doing a max overpower hook shot with an APOC. And I think at that time, you can do it with an APOC 4. And if you do a max overpower hook shot here, and I'm pretty sure I was using a Kingmaker. If you catch the right trajectory on this max overpower hook, your ball's actually, when it comes around the bend and you get the bounce here, you bridge the gap, you're actually going towards the cup. And in that one tournament, I ended up over here in the rough about half the time, but I was right off the green, where it's one of those rough shots that if you hit it perfect, it's going in the hole. But the other half of the time, I was right here where I had a short little chip. And it really, really made this hole quite eagleable. And I cannot remember where I'd set this shot up in order to get the right trajectory. But I'm going to, when I get back out there and we start practicing, this is the shot that I'm going to work on all week, is the max overpower hook, because the max overpower hook can actually get you on the green. And once again, if I end up in the rough or the sand over here, it's super easy to recover, but the opportunity to get on the green in one, or right off on the fringe, or right here in front in one, is too good to pass up. So I'm going to be practicing this max overpower hook shot to see if I can get it worked out. If for some reason I can't get it worked out, I'm definitely going to be doing the shot here so that I can end up out here in front. This is a nice short chip. Not sure what the wind numbers are going to be, but we do have a nice shot from down here. But if we can get on the green, we got to at least practice it to see if we can get that shot down. Hole number 5. All right, this par 3. There is so much movement on this. This hole, there are a ton of different ways that you can play it. I've actually started playing, when this hole first came out, I was playing from down in here. There is a rough bump that you can do from down in here, and there may be another one that you can do over in this area, and this one might be safer because it's a little bit uphill. It's a little bit more even with the cup, as opposed to this one down here, which is way below the cup level. And it's very tricky. You've got to make sure you get your wind adjustment right, and if the wind's blowing where you have to adjust over the sand, look at how much shadow there is here. This is one of those sand traps that's going to hugely distort your rings. So if you're making this, you really need to have practiced it to make sure that you've got some good wind numbers. The shot from the other side, I've made a bunch of hole-in-ones on this hole, but I don't know that I've ever made a hole-in-one on this hole on a perfect shot. It's one of those deals where, and I've taken the shot over here with my long iron, with my Grizzly, and you would think, you do have to put a lot of backspin on it, but you would think that I have had a lot of problems over here where I just, it's always close to the cup, and then I hit something that's not perfect, and I'm pissed because I didn't hit it perfect, and then bam, it goes in the hole. But I've actually switched on this hole, and I'm playing from this side. I find that the shot setup over here, you can have some red line issues here because of where your red line's at, depending on ball. So at the beginning of the week, when we start playing this hole, I'm going to really be focused on, because normally the way it works for me, I'll stop for a second. For those of you that haven't watched my channel before, or are new to the game, my first goal when I go to these holes is to establish what my ball and clubs are going to be. And this is all based off of where I'm going to go. So like what you're going to use if you're over here, or what you're going to use if you're in the rough bump, or if you tried something right here, or if you're in this shot, or if you were crazy as hell and tried to bounce it over from here. This is going to change your ball and your club. I'm not worried at the beginning of the week about any elevation or any wind numbers or none of that. I don't care about wind direction. I don't care about any of that stuff. At the beginning of the week, I need to figure out where I'm going to hit the ball from. Am I going to hit the ball from here? Am I going to hit the ball from here? And then I can focus on that spot. What ball do I need? What club do I need? Where's my red line? If I was in this kind of wind where I had this kind of tailwind and I'm over here, do I have enough room with the ball that I've chosen to be able to work out wind? Or am I going to need to have a low wind ball because I'm not going to have enough room to work out even a 2-mile-an-hour wind? So at the beginning of the week, I'm always concerned about, number one, where am I going to hit? And if that's where I'm going to hit, what ball and what club am I going to need? And then once I can figure that stuff out, then I can really start working this spot. And so I think this week I'm going to start from here and come over. Now, I'm willing to change. Because this par 3, this is one of those par 3s that, like I said, I've made hole-in-ones on it, but I hardly ever make hole-in-ones on a perfect. But I have had more success over here with my shot setup than I did down in this bowl. So I'm going to start on this side, and we'll just see how it goes. All right. Let's talk about this hole in one-on-one. This hole cracks me up in one-on-one because this is a bag that I use in my bag. I use my BT cat or BT big dog. You can use big dog cat. If you've got this in your bag, and you could probably do it if you catch the wind right. If you get any positive wind, you can do this with a quasar. Side spin definitely is good here because you may find yourself in a spot where the side spin is going to be super important because look how much movement there is between here. How we draw a line from there to this. You're going to have to make up this kind of movement. Having some side spin at your disposal is not a bad thing because you don't want to have to set these shots up using curl, especially if you're really going for the cup. But if you're in one-on-one play, I play this with a big topper and a cat, and my goal is to get right there. Anywhere in this area is good, but the closer you can get up here to the rough without going in the rough is obviously better. But even if you're back in this area, you're still fine. And instead of trying to go this way, I'm going up here to this and trying to come down. Now this rough area that's here is pretty steep. So if you can catch it with a little bit of speed, there is a possibility that you could bleed out. But if you're in one-on-one play, you can come in here with a low-level ball, a low-power ball, big topper and a cat, lay yourself up here. Any driver really will get you here, but it just happens that I play this hole with a big topper because the only bag that I usually have with a cat or a big dog is my big topper bag. So if you lay up out in this area, you can easily come over here. You may find yourself in a spot in one-on-one where you're doing overpower, but this is one of those areas where it's pretty safe as long as you can make it over to the other side. So in one-on-one play, I almost always play to the left. In tournaments, it's a different story. So I see a lot of people in tournaments where they're starting up in this area, and they're really trying to get down into here. And I see a lot of them epic fail. It's so damn narrow in this area that if you just lay it up, you're just bouncing from here and you're just trying to follow, like let's pull back so you can see the tee box so we can draw a line here. So from the tee box right here to, let's just say that spot, if we draw this line, you know, you can't bridge the gap from here. So you're going to have to come up to this area and then try and spin it around to get it down there. And your second bounce, if you do not hit this shot perfect, it's not to say, because well, you may have made a bad adjustment or whatever, and you could still hit the fairway. But if you made a good adjustment and you don't hit it perfect, there's a good chance you're either going to end up in this trouble or you're going to end up in this trouble. And from this area here, you're sunk. Now, it's not, you can lay yourself up, put yourself in a good spot and give yourself an opportunity to get in, but you're not going to get on the green. What I'm going to do on this hole is I'm trying to come out here, bigger ball the better. If we got tailwind, you may be able to get away with the power. You might be able to get away with a power 3 ball depending on how big the wind is, but typically if there's a power 5 ball works better because you can get farther out into this fairway instead of having to hit over. You can actually start out over here and get 1 bounce, 2 bounces, 3 bounces, and then try and bleed out and end up in that spot right there. Now, I have seen a couple people come from this direction, hit it as far as I can get it forward, trying to go through that rough, but not very many. And from down here in the rough, if you have a Nirvana in your bag, you can get out here in front and recover. So it is an epic fail ending up in the rough and not getting through, not bleeding through, but you can recover from here. You can't recover from out here. So I want to get farther forward and still give myself a chance to recover if I epic fail. And so I'm going to be going for the shot, trying to get forward momentum to bleed through this rough. The farther you go to the left, the farther the rough goes. So there's an optimal spot if you're trying to go through the tip right here where you're as deep as you are in the fairway, trying to bridge through this to get out into this area. It's kind of a tricky shot, and depending on how the wind's blowing, And we'll have to see how this goes throughout the week. If we got headwind, we may not, because headwind kills it. It kills every successive bounce so bad that by the time you get to the point where you're trying to push through the rough, the ball's dead. So we'll have to see as the week goes on how this shot works out. If we're in a round where it doesn't work out, or we go, hey, we're not going to be able to get past that wind in order to get out there, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this side right here, because this side right here opens the door for huge epic fail. I may lay it up and come at it this way. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. This is one of those holes that I'd be curious to see how the wind affects this as the week goes on. But a bigger ball is definitely not going to hurt you on this. Got a great shot for Albie on that hole, though. This is the other par 3 that the first time I ever played it, I got a hole-in-one on it. And once again, I was at minimum club and I used a max number. So instead of doing 1.3, I did 1.0, and it went straight into the cup. And I did, because of where my red line was at, I did the 1 bounce, 2 bounce, 3 bounce in the hole. What I like to do on this is start in this area where I'm 2 to 3 rings off of this transitional surface with 1 bounce here, 2nd bounce going towards the cup. And what you really have to be careful of here is not necessarily the 1st bounce, but you really got to be cognizant of where that 2nd bounce is, because the 2nd bounce is going to be super close to this rough. And especially if we have any headwind, the 1st bounce is fine, but between where it bounces the 1st time and when it gets to this area, the wind is going to kill it. And it's downhill from here to here. It's really going to kill it. And you can go back, if you record your own video, which you should, you can look at bounce number 1 and it wasn't that bad. But by the time it got to bounce number 2, it hit in the middle of the rough and you just got caught up in it. So really be aware of where your 2nd bounce is at. If we've got any kind of positive moving wind, we're on this side of the line, any kind of positive moving wind. It's typically not that big of a problem unless you overpulled your wind adjustment. But if we have any kind of headwind, any kind of negative wind, especially if it's due headwind, you really have to be aware of where that 2nd bounce is at, because it's super easy to clip that rough. If you clip the rough and bleed out, that's the lucky deal. A lot of times what it'll do is it'll push it back about 3 feet and the 1st bounce hits and then you just get caught up in the rough. But this is a very hole-in-oneable hole. And depending on whether you're trying to do the bounce that he bounced to go over, or whether you're starting on the 2nd fairway and then bouncing over to the green, which ball you use, what kind of an adjustment you're going to make, is going to be a little bit different. But in my experience here, if you're hitting from that center pad, like a starting spot, you may be at minimum club, but at least trying out a max number and seeing where that puts you. Hole number 8. Hole number 8. Maybe, if I can push the button right. All right. This is another par 4 that we have a lot of options on. Myself, I'm going for the green. And this hole could ruin me. But there's no way I'm not going for the green. I'm going to bring out a power 5 ball and I'm going to go for the green. I'm going to try and get a bounce in here. I'm going to try and bridge the gap and try and just bleed myself up to the green. A lot of times here, I don't actually get on the green. I'm right out here in front, a little bit in front of the bridge, so I'm kind of underneath of the bridge, but I'm out here in the front with a chip to get on. I've ended up on the green several times. I've ended up here in the water several times. If you don't hit that shot perfect, you can bounce off this bridge, and I've ended up in the water and the rocks over in this area as well. So a lot of shit can go wrong if you're trying to get on in one. So I'm not telling you that you need to try and get on in one, but there is the possibility to get on in one. And I'm anytime there's a possibility to get on a par 4 in one, I'm going for it. We win and lose these games really with par 4s. If you think about it, if you made an eagle on every par 4 in the game, that means every round you shoot's a -15. And par 4s to me, I mean, par 3's getting a hole in one, par 5's getting an Albie. That's great. That's the gravy in my mind that wins you tournaments. The stability that gets you to the top so that you have an opportunity to win the tournament is getting eagles on par 4s. And I'm going to go for the green in one and try and get the par 4 on this. Now, you can lay it up here on the top. You're going to see a ton of people lay it up here to the top. And from here to the cup, it is way downhill. So there is definitely going to be an adjustment that we're going to have to make depending on where you're ending up here. You could try and get out here to the end and go at it from this way. A lot of people too are going to come out here and try and bridge the gap from here and just try and get through and end up down in this area. So they're pretty flat to the cup. There's still a little bit of movement where it's got a little bit of a bowl in it before it comes up to the cup. From where you're at to the cup, it's not too bad. And you'll see a lot of people during the week just trying to get out into here. They're not trying to get too greedy because you can recover from here. But if they can get over to this side, they've greatly improved their chances. So I think probably the shots that you're going to see most people doing is shot number 1, shot number 2, and then you're going to see people like me, idiots like me, trying to go for the green. But I'm going to go for the green every time because I'm just going to go for it. If 50% of the time I end up right where I want, where I can get that, have a super chance for eagle, and 50% of the time I ended up in the rough or ended up in the sand, those sand and rough shots are still super makeable. And I would rather go for the 50% chance of getting on the green than trying to make a shot up here with elevation and especially how the wind's blowing if we're getting headwind. I think this is going to be one of those holes that if we get headwind, we're going to have to do one adjustment. And if we get tailwind or side wind, we're going to have to do other adjustments. And I really don't want to have to chase the wind around for this shot. I would rather be down here taking a short pitch where wind may not play as big a factor. But we can get on this hole in one, and this is a dangerous hole. One of the areas that you can end up in trouble, besides going off the backside and ending up in the water or hitting the bridge right here and bouncing off into the water, is you can end up down in this area and it can block your view. If you end up in any trouble like that where you have to do some curl or something in order to recover, the whole goal is don't get tricky, don't get greedy, just get on the green, get your birdie, move on. If you go for a risky shot and the drive didn't work out and the second shot has any risk involved in it at all, be conservative. Get on the green, recover, get your birdie, move on. Don't lose a shot off the minimum score. There's too many opportunities in this tournament to pick a shot up, and there's going to be too many people trying to go for the green that are going to make it, and they're going to be ahead of you. So you don't want to drop 2 shots on this hole. Just recover, get your birdie, move on. Hole number 9. All right. Let's see if I can remember how to play this hole. I'm pretty sure. Okay, there's 2 ways to play it. If you're going to play out here to the tip, look at these trees. Look at this tree. Draw a line from the cup. Okay, in order to clear those trees so you have a straight in shot and you don't have to do any curl, you need to be in this zone. So in my mind, you really need to be in front of this shadow and you need to be on this side. So you need to be over here. The closer you are to the rough over on this side, the more likely the trees are going to be in your way. And if you don't have a big side spin ball, you may have to put curl in order to bring it around to the cup. So if you're finding yourself in this area a lot, make sure you bring a bigger side spin ball so that you have a little bit more maneuverability. The other way to go with this, and depending on which way the wind's blowing, you can do this with power 3 balls, is landing up on this zone, trying to get the bridge to get over to catch the fairway and get forward run, and you can get way the hell up in there. You can get into your short iron range up there. All the albies that I've ever made on this, I've made from this side. And getting way up here where you can have that shot coming in is definitely worth the effort. And once again, anywhere you end up in trouble out here, you can recover. So there's not a lot of risk, but the reward is huge if you can get your ball up into that area, because if you're going this direction, this is it. So if we look at our arcs for club, I mean, we're way inside that arc. So we're in a much better, I would rather take shots with my short iron than my long iron. I'd rather take shots with my long iron than I would as far as like getting them into the cup. So the farther you're back, it's not that you can't make it, but you always have a better shot when you're closer and in your lower clubs. This area up here has got a hump in it. So if you're you can't hit back on this side, because if you hit back on this side and it's got that hump in it, if you hit back on this side, it's going to take more of an upward trajectory. Whereas if you hit it here, it's going to take a normal bounce going forward. You're going to get more forward distance if you're up here on the top of the hill with the bounce, going from bounce number 1 to bounce number 2, than if you're just a little bit back from the top of that ridge. So if you're even in this area, the ball is going to lose a lot of forward momentum. So when you take this shot, it's going to be a max over power shot. You want to make sure that the ball that you're bringing is putting you at the top of this hill or on the other side where it's flat. If you're still back on this side, it's very unlikely that you're going to be, even if, like I said, even if you're just a little bit back of the ridge, it's very unlikely you're going to get enough forward distance to make it all the way over and clip the fairway and then run forward. What could happen is you'll clip this rough and then you just bleed out and you'll end up here, and you still got a great shot. You're still inside of this. This is going to be more likely a long iron, and this is going to be more likely a wood. I can't really remember up here whether it's a wood or a long iron, but it seems like it's a wood from up here and it's a long iron from down here and it's a short iron from right here. This is a great hole. This is a great hole that'll give us a super good opportunity for albatross if we can get out into this area. All right. Those were the Groomberg slope holes. I really kind of like our chances here. If we look at the holes, you know, minimum score is -12. We got to get an eagle on all the par 5s. We got to get birdies on all the par 4s and all of the par 3s. So, I mean, that's minimum score. And you never want to put minimum score at risk. So if you're taking big, risky shots, you have to look at like, hey, if that shot doesn't work out and I didn't get the reward, hey, I can recover from there. So there's really no harm, no foul. As long as you maintain your minimum score at -12 and you're trying on every hole to pick a shot up. So on hole number 1, we have an opportunity to pick up a shot. So there's one. This par 5. I think all 3 of the par 5s, you have shots to go in. I think hole number 9, I think, might be the best shot coming in. But you're going to have some pretty good shots here depending on where you end up. If you end up down in here, if you end up here, even from here, you're going to have great shots coming in at it. I really would like to get down in here because I think it's flat. But normally on this hole, I play out into this area. But the one thing that I've struggled with out here is that it's inconsistent as far as yardage. So if you've got tailwind and you're using the wind, or if you got headwind and you have to fight against it, you may have one shot that's here and one shot that's up here. And so I've had to chase the wind around a little bit. I'm going to explore in this tournament, at least at the beginning of the week, what it will take to get down here. And if I don't think that I can consistently get down there, or like, hey, this shot's just not working, and I know you can consistently get down there, but I'm not sure as far as with headwind how that will affect it. But I am going to start the week off here. I think we have a great opportunity here, but this is not a gimme. This par 3 right here is super makeable. We can work out our numbers on this and dial this shot in as the week goes by. First goal, figure out where you want to hit. The second goal, now that you figured out where you hit, what ball and club are you going to need, and then you can really, now that you know when you come to this hole what you need, now you can start focusing on wind adjustments or elevation adjustments. Hole number 4. Another par 4 that we have an excellent opportunity, especially if you do the max over par hook where you can get up on the green. We have an excellent opportunity here of picking up an eagle. This is not a gimme. Although if you can do the max over par hook shot and make it over to the other side, I'm not saying it's a gimme even if you end up in here, but you've got a really serious chance. Even from down in this area right here, you have a serious chance. Even from over here, you have a really good chance. But this is a hole right here. It's not a gimme, but we have an awesome opportunity to pick up a shot on hole number 4. This par 3 right here, I'm going to have to work on as the week goes on. I'm going to work with my buddy Dunner. He likes these par 3s. He really focuses on the par 3s, and I'll see what he's playing, and I may just play what he's playing. Although I will tell you that sometimes he takes shots that I think are dangerous as hell. And that's because he hits perfect all the time, and I don't. There's times when I do hit perfect all the time, but there's a lot of times where I'm talking and I can't get into a rhythm. But this par 3, we do have opportunities here, but this is a par 3 that I think, if we look at it as a whole, if you have 100 people in your bracket and we have X amount of people that get a hole in one, there's going to be Y amount of people that get a par. And I think that these numbers are going to be pretty damn close to each other. I think the majority of people that come into this hole are going to end up getting birdie. But I think that there are that of any of the holes in here that are going to make people epic fail, this par 3 right here is going to eat a bunch of people's lunch, especially people who are really focused on this rough bump. There's a lot of players out there that are going to get that shot down. My buddy Hammer and Hank, I know that he does the rough bump here, and he is super good at it. But his wind adjustments, if you're not as good a player as him, you're going to struggle to try and get those adjustments, and it's going to be very easy to end up in the rough or in that sand. And you're going to see this hole right here eat a bunch of people's lunch. This hole could ruin people's tournaments where they're doing good everywhere else, and then they got on this hole and they screwed it up. But of the par 3s, I think this one's pretty dangerous, but we do have a great opportunity here if we can dial it in. Hole number 6, this par 5. This is going to be the long shot coming in. Of the par 5s, we've got a really long shot no matter where you end up. Even if you end up like I want to end up and end up out in this area, you still have a long shot to get in. I've made albies on this hole, but it's still a long shot to get in. It's doable, but it's not a gimme. This par 3 right here is super makeable. This is another one of those holes, but this is also another one of those holes, kind of like the middle par 3, where there is going to be a certain group of people that are going to epic fail here. And what's going to epic fail them is they're going to get caught on their second bounce in the rough. They're going to, especially if we've got a headwind, they're going to make a bad adjustment and they're going to end up getting stuck right there and end up getting a par on this hole. This is a very hole-in-oneable hole, but we're going to have to get our adjustments right to make sure that we can get it going towards it, but we do not want to clip that rough on our second bounce. And you can do a rough bump there too. There is a rough bump that you can do in that area. The thing I don't like about this particular rough bump is that it's a bowl. So it comes down from this one, and then there's a bowl right here. And if you're hitting, depending on where you're hitting on it, your bounce is going to be different going forward. So it's one of those things where you could have done everything right, but you made a slightly bad wind adjustment, and you hit up here on the face and it took a bigger bounce forward, or you hit over here on the flat and it takes a shot going, it takes a flat trajectory. So there can be problems here. I've tried this rough bump before, and you can get a run, but it's a dangerous area to do a rough bump, in my opinion, for my game, just because of this bowl. Because you got to have every single thing perfect. And I've made a lot of hole-in-ones by doing the bounce here, bounce up, and then running it to the cup. So that's what I'm going to be doing this week. But there is a chance down here. But this hole will kick some people's ass this week. Hole number 8. This is another great par 4 with an opportunity to get on and one. All 3 of the par 4s, it's risky. All 3 of the par 4s, we're going to have to take some risks if we want to put ourselves in a spot where we could almost not get eagle. And this hole in particular, there's such big adjustments depending on whether you're up here at the top or where you're at coming down this hill, that if I can get up really close to the green or on the green, I think that my chances are just better. But once again, this is absolutely no gimme. And hole number 9. Hole number 9 of the par 5s is definitely the hole that you can get closest to and really give yourself a good chance. This isn't quite the same height as the cup. There will be a slight adjustment that you'll have to do from out here. And the problem with this adjustment out here is that you can't count on being in this spot, because how the wind's going to go and your bounce over from your first bounce here trying to bridge the gap, there's going to be times where you clip the rough and you just bleed out and you're here, and there's going to be times where you caught it good and you're a little bit farther, and so you're landing your final zone out here where you land, there's going to be some variance in it, and so you may have to chase this hole a little bit. If you're in one spot, it's like, yeah, I got that dialed in, but getting back to that spot may be difficult. I don't see any gimmies. I do see some great opportunities, especially on the par 4s, for us to be able to get ourselves to minus 15. I think this is going to be like a lot of tournaments. Our goal is, even though our minimum score is minus 12, we want to stick to minimum score so that we can maintain, but we're trying to pick up a shot on every single hole, and we're going to need to pick up 2 to 3 shots per side, probably 3, in order to keep up with the Joneses. we'll have to see as the tournament goes on and how it's planned. I need to get out and play some of these holes. I practiced the other day in Tour 8, but there's always a difference when you're in the Pro Tees versus in the rookie tees, and I wasn't bringing out big balls trying to really go for it and setting it up for the tournament, because you can't really practice the pro stuff to prepare yourself for rookie. All right, that was the shredded, what was it? What the hell is the name of this course? It's a shredded something. All right, that was the walkthrough. Hopefully everybody have a great week. I will play a practice round. I may play a practice round this weekend. I'm going to call my buddy Kevin and see if he wants to play. The deal is that Kevin and I are both at the point where we're just like bored with the game, but when we're playing with each other and we're talking on the phone, it's really fun. So I may call him up and see if he wants to do a practice round. He practiced so much last week that prepping, and we peaked in the opening round and then like fell apart in the weekend round. Damn rookies. So everybody has a great week, and stay safe, and I will catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.